Welcome to the race recap for Challenge Almere, the long course European Championships, which I competed in last weekend. It was an absolutely mental race for me. I didn't quite expect it to pan out the way that it did, but tried to capitalise on an opportunity that arose and went from there, kind of just full send and committed to it. It's sort of in the plan, but also not. And yeah, I'll just go through how the day panned out. We all got in the water in race order, ranking order, and I was second in the water, so I got all the way to the far left-hand side of the start line, which was great because that's exactly where I wanted to be. But just so happened that Lucas Voigt ended up my side as well, so, which is great because he's the fastest swimmer there by a fair way, I'd say. So we were right there at the start together. I managed to get a really good start alongside him. He pretty much immediately went to the front. I was watching across the other way and just monitoring where he was as well. So as you can see here, I'm right near his hip, but definitely not on it, stopping him swimming at all, because I wanted us to get a really good start and at least try and be there, because in Roth, I tried to be there and something was not quite right with me and I just couldn't stay there. I filled up with lactic and I almost went out the back door because, yeah, just tried way too hard. He was swimming way too fast for me. And I thought the same thing was going to happen here, but I thought even if I can use his feet for a little bit just to get to the front of the race and consolidate myself there, that would be amazing, even if he swam off into the distance. He didn't swim off into the distance as it happened. I managed to stay there for a fair bit before people came from the other side. I think it was Onion, ended up coming from the other side, careering into the side of me, absolutely fair enough, trying to get Lucas's feet. I thought, if he stays here, as you can see here, we're having a little bit of a scrap. If he stays here, we might lose Lucas's feet. So I'd say this was possibly one of the hardest bits for me because I was getting a little bit dragged back by Onion on my side, and it was harder, obviously, when people are there on your hip. It's harder then to move forward as effectively because they're kind of drafting you and scrapping you. So it wasn't too bad by any stretch, but I managed to stay on Lucas's feet, which was bit of a miracle because, again, when it happened in Roth, I just wasn't able to stay there. So as you can see, we've conceded the places. I managed to consolidate my position in second, staying on Lucas's feet, and Onion moved slightly back, which was perfect for me. So we were just moving really nicely through the water here. The first couple of 100 meters, as you can see, it's only 2 minutes on the clock. So yeah, this is right the early stages of what was about 44 minutes in the end of the swim. The first buoy was coming up in the next 45 seconds. So yeah, just really wanted to consolidate myself there. This is a little bit further into the race, about one lap in. And as you can see, the positions haven't changed too much, but there was a group of about 7 of us moving through the water really well. I was still in second, Onion in third, I think. And then you can see Florian there in fourth. So yeah, we were moving really nicely through the water. I felt the pace was pretty on still. It felt like I was swimming threshold the entire time, at least, possibly even harder. So that's not really what you want to be doing in a full distance race. But at the same time, we were moving really quickly through the water with Lucas on the front. He's so smooth, got such a nice, long, effortless stroke. And I was there just like scrapping away, trying to stay on his feet, essentially. So yeah, and I was relatively comfortable at this stage, still working hard, but not like overworking. It was okay to stay there. It was harder going into the sun. This is going away from the sun, so I could see where I was going and stay on his feet a little bit easier. Every now and again, he'd put in a bit of a surge, possibly to try and break up the pack. And it was pretty tough to go with him, but at the same time, I had a little bit extra kind of like top end that I was able to use just to stay there. We did start coming across age groupers, as you can see here, and that was a little bit tough as well to negotiate. But again, Lucas did a really good job of that. This is coming into the finish. Lucas and I went off in the wrong direction. I think he couldn't see because of the sun, but we ended up coming into transition all at the same time, pretty much. Lucas leading out. I dropped off a little bit because I think he put in a bit of a spurt to get into transition first. And I was like, I'm not going with that. / didn't want to because I didn't want to spike the heart rate coming into transition and onto the bike. So again, there was a group of 7 of us. I had a very quick transition actually. So whilst I was maybe 4th into T2, I had a very quick transition. I was second out of T1, sorry. And the chase pack were behind me. I actually put in a decent surge at the start. So this is the group of guys with Jesper in the middle there maybe. And I think it had Andy Horsfall-Turner, Florian and a few others there. So Jesper was working quite well in that group eventually. I think Andy and Florian were doing a lot of the work for the first 50k. I was a little bit further ahead at this point, and I'm not sure if they knew how far ahead I was or not, but Andy and Florian knew I was there. I spoke to Andy beforehand and he said that they were trying to chase me down. So I was just settling into my rhythm. I'd had a small gap before we got onto the dike, and then as soon as we got onto the dike, I kind of put the hammer down again and tried to consolidate that gap, because I didn't want them to be too close to me, because I knew I was one of the stronger riders in the field. So I didn't want people to be able to benefit from my kind of pace and strength as much if they couldn't reach me. If they could reach me, fair play, like we'd work together, consolidate, and then see kind of what happened later in the race, whether or not I had legs, they had legs, or yeah, what that meant for the run then. But I was just trying to be strong and smooth, stick to my powers, that I knew I could hold, especially for the first hour, just trying to really be smooth and fast, but at a higher power than what I'd maintained for the rest of the ride. There was a little bit of panic going through my head. I was like, I'm on my own. This wasn't necessarily in the plan at all. I kind of wanted to be with people so that I could work with them, not completely fry my legs. So I had no idea how that was going to pan out throughout the rest of the race. I think it was more of a case of I was getting time gaps every now and again, which was like going up very quickly in that first hour whilst I was putting out a decent amount of power, about 330, 340 watts for that first hour. So I'm not surprised that it went out, but when I kind of drew it back to that kind of more sustainable Ironman power of around 300 watts, the gap to Jesper then maintained, because I think when I eventually knocked the power off, he'd realised that I was up front and he started putting the hammer down himself. So he broke away from that group behind me and was probably just riding a similar sort of power and pace to me behind, holding that 3-minute gap. I was looking back every now and again, panicking, because I wasn't getting gaps very often at all. So I was trying to get a gauge on where they were and just kind of maintain that gap as best as possible, because I thought I was within myself, but at the same time, you never know come the end of one of these rides, especially because in Roth, I'd had issues at the back end of the ride because of fueling or hydration or whatever it was, and I'd put in a big effort in the middle of Roth as well. That really caused some issues. So yeah, a little bit of panic, a little bit of kind of like trying to maintain that gap, because around the 3-hour mark, I got notification that it was only 90 seconds, and I was like, what the hell? So I tried to push on a little bit more towards the end. It turns out that it was Pip that was behind me, and not Jesper. Pip had had an awesome ride, so yeah, he'd closed the gap. So coming into transition, I managed to maintain the gap to Pip and Jesper. So I think it was about 90 seconds to Pip, so I maintained that for the last 30k and 3 minutes to Jesper. Got onto the run and I felt great. I felt really good coming out and just trying to get myself sorted. I had a really quick transition again, get myself sorted in this first little loop, 900 meters or so, before we got onto the main big 10-kilometer loop. And yeah, I think all went well, felt pretty preppy. The issue that I had on the bike a little bit is I'd had a bit of gut issue, and I've never had that before. So I was a little bit tentative coming onto the run, thinking I may have issues. I didn't, to be honest, like not to begin with. As you can see here, Jesper came in about 3 minutes back, looking good as well. But yeah, I managed to get out of transition before he was able to see me, which was great, because I thought out of sight, out of mind. And that was kind of my approach going into the first lap of the run as well. Like if I can run relatively solid, probably just above my what I wanted to finish on race pace wise, then I could try and consolidate that lead, and yeah, maybe they'd second guess themselves, but yeah, they're racers, they don't really do that. Jesper had a great one. But yeah, as you can see here, I'm actually running really well for me. I mean, really nice to get some video footage of me here because I don't always get to see myself run on video, especially in a race scenario. This was an epic course, literally unbelievable. I would highly recommend it. Running out on the water essentially. But yeah, no, I was running really well. First couple of laps, I was averaging about that 3:55, maybe 3:50 sometimes, which is above my race pace. I know that was above what I was capable of. And I even said that to some of the spotters on the course. I was like, look, I'm overrunning, I need to slow down. And the gap was going out. So I definitely should have slowed down. The gap to Jesper was going out, and it went out to about 4 minutes by halfway, I think it was. I think I ran about 1:22, 1:23 for that first half. And then the third lap came about, this is about 25, almost 30k in now. And my stomach was having serious issues again. I could not take on board as much as I wanted to, both fluid and carbohydrate wise. And for that 25 to 30k, I really started to struggle. And yeah, it was a bit of a downhill, it went downhill very quickly from there. I was still running okay technique wise, but I had to really button off the gas because I just wasn't able to get anything in, and I knew that was going to be curtains if I wasn't able to do that. So as you can see here, Jesper was closing me down really quickly, and I was basically at a standstill here. Like, I had a really bad stitch, was trying to sort myself out, just yeah, really button off that gas to try and allow myself to release some of that gas in my stomach. I got rid of my nerd belt here because, again, it felt like there was a really high pressure on my stomach. And yeah, it was just one of those where I was just trying everything just to release that kind of pressure that I was feeling and that gut wrench feeling that I had on my tummy. Coming through to the last lap, I knew that Jesper was just behind me, or he must have been just behind me, and it was going to be a miracle to hold him off. I'd have to bring my legs back around, which weren't actually that bad at this point. It was mainly my gut. I just needed to get running again. And just after I went through this lap, I was almost able to start running again. And I don't know like what happened, whether I was able to just get a little bit of water in or something. But by this point, Jesper was moving far faster than I was, and as you can see here, he took the lead at 32k. I was actually running better by this point, whilst not as fast as what he was running. I was back to running all right. I must have gotten something inside of me, like just in terms of fluid and hydration and nutrition, to be able to run again. But another couple of k later, my legs just fell apart, and I think probably because I wasn't able to get anything in during that 5k, 25 to 30k, and I'd overrun, obviously, I just started capitulating and having to kind of almost hobble home. My quads just gave way, and it was just another scenario where I just not got it right on the day. I gave it my best though, and I put myself in a position to potentially win. I was just, yeah, 4 or 5 minutes off that top step, which, you know, it's a fair old way still. But came into the finish shoot absolutely thrilled with my performance. Like, on the day, I was seriously proud, and yeah, just to come home in second in a European Championship in my third full distance event that I've ever done, so Cascais, Roth, and then this, absolutely over the moon. I couldn't believe it. Obviously I wanted to win, and I'd been out front for, I don't know, a lot of the day, 6 hours I think I spent in the lead or something like that, and Jesper overtook me in the last hour. But to be honest, you only have to be in front for the last second, and that's all that matters to win. But yeah, absolutely thrilled with my performance, really proud of it. To take the bull by the horns, I think I had to do that to try and win. Jesper was always going to be able to outrun me, that's just better than my capability. But yeah, like, I gave myself a chance. I felt awful coming across the line, probably the worst I've ever felt. Just stomach ache, like seriously bad stomach ache, and that's I don't think that's too much to do with what caused the performance or the lack of the win. I think that was just part of my experience at the end of the day. I wish I didn't have tummy ache and done the run the way that I'd done it. It's still the same pace. I think it's on the same sort of level as what Roth was. I think Roth I ran a 2:52 and 2:54, and here I ran a 2:53. So that's basically my capability. And then Lars, you can see here, came across the line only a minute behind me. So I managed to hold on just about. So yeah, swim about 44 minutes, ride 4:05 minutes, and then yeah, 2:53 for the marathon. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this race recap. Hopefully it was useful and a bit of an insight into what was going on. For more race numbers, I think, I'm not sure on the pace of that swim, probably about 113s maybe. The power at the end was about a 306 watts, so probably one of my best Ironman powers to date. And then the run it ended up about 4:08 per K, whatever that is in miles, minute miles. But yeah, really pleased and proud of that performance, and I'm looking forward to my next one, which will be in Ironman Barcelona. So stay tuned, hopefully I can put in a good performance there, and I'll keep you up to date with my recovery from this and how that's potentially going to look as well.